Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I'll be providing my book review of the book Star Trek Typhon Pact, Rough Beasts of Empire by David R. George III. This is the third book in the Star Trek Typhon Pact series. The first book was Zero Sum Game by David Mack, and the second book was Seize the Fire by Michael A. Martin. And this is also the third David R. George book that I've read. I also read his book Revelation and Dust from the Fall series, which I thought was not good. And then I also read his book, his Mission Gamma novel that he wrote, which I thought was really excellent. And I think this is a much more entertaining novel, but I thought that his Mission Gamma book was a better book, kind of. I'll get into it. This is by far, though, the best book of the three in the Typhon Pact series. I thought that Zero Sum Game was just boring and uninspired and not enough action. And I thought that Seize the Fire was too alien and sci-fi and not enough on the Typhon Pact. This book is exciting, it's original, it has all the political action, and it focuses on the Typhon Pact. So it gives me everything I wanted. It just has a little extra thing that I didn't want in there. What makes this book so good, that for me, is the whole political storyline on Romulus. After all of the crazy stuff that happened in Nemesis, where they messed up everything with Romulus, the Star Trek authors are trying to piece everything back together. And in this book, we get to see the Romulan government being pieced back together. At the same time, we also have Spock working on the reunification movement. His idea is to get the Vulcans and the Romulans to come back together as a species and to be able to commune with each other and be able to become friends and allies and whatnot. And so Spock is leading this reunification movement, but it's kind of illegal. It gave me some vibes of the types of things that Nelson Mandela was doing in South Africa during apartheid. What Spock is trying to do seemed very similar in this book. Also, you have these different political people who now the entire Romulan Senate was murdered. So now these different Romulans are now coming into the Senate, and they're having to experience what it's like to be a senator now. And all of that political storyline was phenomenal. Some of the best political storyline in Star Trek. Got some great themes. It wasn't heavy on the themes like some of David Mack's books or Una McCormick's books, but it had some pretty good themes. It also had some great action, great political thriller aspects to it, and it also had just some great political dialogue that made me feel like I was reading almost like a something similar to a Keith R.A. Canada novel, where there's that political dialogue that works so well. You also had Tal Ora, who is the head of the Romulans. She was a very interesting character. We also had Spock, who generally Spock does not lead a novel. Spock is not the main character, but he is in this book, and I think it works quite well. I think this was a very good novel for Spock as the lead. He's usually just the sidekick to Kirk, or a sidekick to Picard, or a sidekick to what's his name? Pike. You know, he's rarely ever his own original character who leads the story. He really leads it well here. Another way that this book works is it just feels fresh and it feels connected to the Typhon Pact. This book has major impact on the Typhon Pact narrative as a whole, and it leads the Typhon Pact into the future, where we are going in the future. I know where we're going because I've read some of the later books, not Typhon Pact novels, but some of like the Fall and the Prey trilogy and things like that. But this book is getting us over there, and it's really interesting to see all that unfold. Unfortunately, there is a weaker aspect of this novel, which is the controversial part of this novel, and that is Sisko's storyline. I know a lot of book reviewers did not like this book. A lot of them rated it 1 or 2 stars, and a lot of them it was because of what happened with Benjamin Sisko in this book. And I completely understand why they feel this way. I think that David R. George takes Sisko and makes him do things that A, the writers of the TV show would never write, and B, things that the audience didn't want to happen. Yet, I think it makes sense for Sisko personally, and I think it still works in the novel itself. His reasons make sense, and his decisions and actions make sense. That said, my bigger problem than the actions and the way that it was that he was portrayed was more with how the storyline was written. It takes place over this huge amount of time, and you just keep skipping forward in Sisko's life. And in reality, what they should have done is they should have had multiple books before this that showed what's happening to Sisko. This book had to serve as a catch-up book. Sisko goes off to the prophets and comes back, and then we just don't hear from him for several years in the publishing timeline, and then he's magically brought back in this book. And they just skip over this huge part of the time that we haven't seen with him. Well, what I think should have happened is I think that David R. George had from about 2002 to about 2010, so about 8 years, where he didn't write TOS books. He did not write, let me rephrase that. He did not write Deep Space Nine books. He wrote several TOS novels. He wrote a TOS trilogy for the 40th anniversary. He wrote a couple of TOS standalones. He did not write Deep Space Nine novels. And I think that had he taken some time to write some Sisko novels, maybe 1, 2, maybe 3, that would have filled in this timeline, it wouldn't have felt so jarring here. The other problem is that these two timelines should have converged more. There's only about 1 or 2 chapters where the two timelines of Spock and Sisko actually converge. Instead, they mostly feel separate. And as I felt with Revelation and Dusk, that felt like 2 books that were smooshed together into one short book. Instead, this book feels the same way, but the political aspect of this novel is so good, I'm willing to give it a higher score because I loved it so much. The Sisko stuff didn't bother me as much here as it did, as the Kira Nerys stuff bothered me in Revelation and Dust. So this works better on that side. And the political storyline is just so entertaining here that it's more entertaining than the Mission Gamma book. But I will admit, in hindsight, I think that his Mission Gamma book Twilight, should have, it was a much better constructed book, and it did better in what it was trying to accomplish. This book turned off a lot of fans and made a lot of people angry. So that is my review of Star Trek Typhon Pact Rough Beasts of Empire. The 4th book, Paths of Disharmony by Dayton Ward, is up next. I will read that in a few weeks and bring you my review. But I had a lot of fun with this one. I give it like a 4.5 out of 5, somewhere in there. A really entertaining book, but not necessarily in the upper echelons of Star Trek. This gives me a little bit more hope. I was feeling kind of melancholy after reading these 2 books. I thought they were both mediocre, so I was hoping for something that would be more entertaining, and this book was that. It just wasn't necessarily good. Whereas these books could be considered good books, they just weren't entertaining. So that's my opinion on Rough Beasts of Empire. If you've read this book, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's as controversial as I do? Leave me your thoughts and comments down in the comments below. But until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.